Welcome to Enlightened Connections, a space for intuition, healing, and remembering what connects us. I'm Lisa Aston Michael. If you'd like to continue these conversations, follow on Spotify and stay with us. Welcome back to Enlightened Connections, and once again, thank you so much for your time. We are going to speak to a very special person today. My guest today is Kathy McDaniel, and her story is both confronting and profoundly enlightening. In late 1999, during a drug-induced coma, Kathy experienced a distressing near-death experience, one that took her through what she describes as multiple levels of hell before ultimately encountering the peace and expansiveness of heaven. What followed was not just survival, but a complete transformation of her understanding of life, death, and everything in between. After 40 years as an expert in real estate property management, Kathy's life took an unexpected turn in January 2000 when she became an ARDS, ARDS survivor and near-death experiencer. Through her own integration journey and with the support of the International Association for Near-Death Studies, she now helps others who have had similar experiences and co-hosts a monthly sharing group to support and guide them. She's the author of the globally available memoir, Misfit in Hell to Heaven Expat. I love that title, where she shares not only her extraordinary experience, but also insights into living a more peaceful life, releasing the fear of death and understanding the deeper purpose of our time here on the earth. With over 185 speaking and podcast appearances worldwide and more than 2 million views, Kathy is a powerful voice in the near-death experience community. Please join me in welcoming Kathy McDaniel to the show. Welcome, Kathy.
Oh, welcome, Lisa. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
It's very exciting to have you here. And just to get started, to kick us off, because I can just feel this rabbit hole that we're going to go down and this exploring this fascinating experience of near-death experience. Take us back to that moment in 1999 and what led up to your near-death experience. You know, what do you remember feeling anything, or what happened?
I had been caring for my dear friend who had leukemia and was in a research hospital up in Seattle. He'd come from Chicago. I came from California, and it was supposed to be a 2 or 3 month event where they would try all these, new products on him to try and stop the leukemia. But it drug out, and it was 8 or 9 months of the other caregiver and I just around the clock with this trauma and the drama of him getting better and getting worse. And then finally he did pass away, and I was just a wreck. I was completely run down, and then I caught a flu that was going around very much like COVID. And within a very short period of time, I found myself in an emergency room, and there was no pulse, I'm told, when they got me in there. And I woke up, I guess, a couple days later, and my family was there from California and Colorado. And I thought, boy, what's going on? And oh, wait a minute, what's going on? I'm in an oxygen tent. Well, they told me I had ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome, and that's lung failure. I was 52. I was in good health, but run down. And they said, it doesn't look good. We think the only chance we have is to put you in this drug-induced coma, trach you, and then we're just going to throw the book at you. My daughter got online and found an ARDS survivor group in Seattle, and they were helping, she'd run into the doctor and say, oh, you should set the air machine at this and that. So just before that, it was just, the last thing I remember is the ball going down for New Year's Eve. They said, okay, we're going to put you in this coma. You're not going to remember anything. It's just your brain's offline, and then hopefully we'll wake you up. And so I had no real choice, and they put me out. And
Mhm.
then I woke up. I thought, wait a minute. It was completely dark. I didn't hear anything. And later on, I found that's called the void.
Mm.
A lot of people go there. It's like a waiting room, I guess. But and Lisa, it's been 26 years now, and I've done an awful lot of interviews, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, and people all over the world are trying to figure this darn thing out. The regular NDEs, where it's blissful and wonderful and
Mm.
all, but the distressing ones are very difficult for people to talk about. After this void, I was thrust into this continuation, like you said, of bright lights coming up, and then this ridiculously horrible scene in front of me, like the first one was, like this bombed out city, and there was this fires and people screaming and running around and total chaos, and I had no idea how I got there or what was going on. So I'm trying to find some shelter, and things are going from bad to worse, and then all of a sudden the lights go out, and then they come up, and I was someplace else. There was a time when I was on this road, and all I could see in the distance was just like it was being on the moon. There was like just nothing but maybe rocks. And then this horizon had reddish glow, like maybe a fire was coming up over the top. And I never knew when some creature or happening would occur. It was very stressful. And it seemed like a very, very long time that all this took place. Going back over it over the 2 decades plus and talking to other people that have had the distressing ones. And so many of them say, wow, I had segments too.
Mm.
And I thought, I can trace back every single one of those horrible experiences to something that actually happened in my life.
Mm.
The
Mm.
first one, I was in the 1989 earthquake in Santa Cruz, and my town fell down right around my office. I was under the desk. Things were bumping around, people screaming, running. A house fell off its foundation. It's on fire. So all of that, I think, and the rest of them I can do too. But just recently, what I've heard or we're discussing is that there's this wonderful book by Alan Pierce called Comas and Near-Death Experiences, where he has done an in-depth study of what happens to people in comas that are too long, longer than 2 or 3 days. And to make it kind of simple, it sounds like that our consciousness, which is not a part of brain, our brain is like the radio that picks up the signal of the consciousness, which is our spirit, which is our part of God, which is our part of everything, and translates it for you. So when you're in this coma and they take your brain offline,
Mm.
the consciousness is kind of going, "What happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
This isn't right. Where is she? What's going on?" And so there's this theory, and it's all theory at this point, that it might say, okay, wait a minute. I remember a time, she was in an earthquake. She was, in a deathly situation. Maybe it's that. Let's bring that up and see if that plays.
Mm.
And if it didn't, okay, well, let's try this. So I've come to understand that's probably what happened to me. And that's so much better than thinking I went to hell, because I was this devout Catholic girl that, followed the rules, man. And
Mm.
then
Mm.
to think, wait a minute, how did I end up here? That's not fair. you know. So I I did, when I got to the end of my time, I guess my consciousness finally said, oh, to heck with it. We're just going to go home, which is
Mm.
heaven.
Mm.
I did blast out of there, into that indescribable bliss and joy and feeling of being home. And then there was my friend who had died the month before, and he looked great, and he's laughing, and I'm looking around and just saying, "Oh my gosh, he doesn't know he's dead." And he bursts out laughing, and I thought, "Wait a minute, I didn't say that. Oh my God, if he's dead."
It's
I
not
says,
looking
"Oh,
good for me.
no, this is great." Oh, I was so excited. I says, "Why are we just standing here, man? Let me show me around. It's gonna be fun."
Yeah.
And he said, now, Mary Kay, you have got too much left to do." And I thought, "Huh?" That sounds like an exit line.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
boom, back I go. Opened my eyes, and I was very, very, very angry. I did not wanna leave. I thought, "What?" So here I am in this bed after, 18 days in a coma. I weighed, 86 pounds, no muscle mass left, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My family's all yippee-skippy, doing, and I'm thinking, "Now what?" "Where am I now?" So it took, a whole month in ICU, a whole month in a physical rehab facility, learning how to walk and talk and go up and down stairs, no muscle mass, no muscle memory, and then trying to figure out what the hell was that about? Nobody wanted to talk about it. No, 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 no. It was just the drugs. No, it wasn't. It really wasn't. So it took me 10 years, Lisa, before I found IANS through a series of synchronicities. It was just time. And I got myself up there, and of course, oh golly, it was just maybe 100 people in a library room, and they were waiting for the speaker. And I went a couple times, and of course, it was the angels and puppies and rainbows, and I thought, oh man, that's not what happened to me. So I was creeping out of a meeting one time, and I thought, I'm not coming back. This is just not working. And the guy must have kind of felt that. He says, you're always grumpy when you're here. What's going on? And I says, "Well, that's just not what happened to me." And he says, "Well, what did?" I said, "I went to hell." He says, "Great." And I said, "What?" And he says, "Nobody ever talks about that stuff. You got to tell us what happened." So I was arm wrestled into doing that. But once it got out, I felt so much better. Nobody said, "You're a terrible person, go home." They
Mm.
just said, "This is wonderful." And I became the hell girl. So when we had people come to the meetings every month, if somebody had a distressing one, they said, "Okay, go get Kathy. She's the hell girl. She'll take care of it."
Mm.
And I thought, "Oh, I have a purpose." you know, this happened for a reason. This is cool. And so that evolved slowly. And the more I went to conferences and stuff, people would find me and say, "I hear you had one of those too." And I thought, wow, somebody says, "Well, about 20% of the people have distressing ones." And I thought, that's a lot of people.
Mm.
Why aren't you guys doing anything about this?
Mm.
So started the little group about, I guess, 4.5 years ago. And people are just so happy to come to our group and finally tell their story, have somebody listen and say, "Yeah, I get it," and
Mm.
give our ideas about, "No, that wasn't hell. That was probably your consciousness trying to reach out and find out what was going on."
Mm.
So finding Alan's been recent. Then out of that came a PhD student who's doing her thesis on distressing near-death experiences, and so she's gotten in the picture. And then there was another lady that's got a podcast that's interested in this. So we're getting this little group together, and IANS has conferences every year, and I'm hoping to get a spot this year for a presentation because if I don't do it, nobody will. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that come to these conferences, not to mention how many are online. But I'm very excited about it
Mm.
that finally somebody's cracking the egg so we can kind of take a look at what's really going on here.
Mm.
And I think it's going to be beneficial to a lot of people.
Hugely beneficial. It's one thing that we don't talk about. I was raised as a Catholic as well, and we're taught to be absolutely terrified and horrified of hell. And if we go to hell, it's because, we stole money out of mum's handbag or whatever it was when we were kids. But I don't know. I'm familiar with IANS, and I receive a monthly newsletter from Wendy and Victor Zammit. I don't know if you're aware of them, but it's very much about the afterlife and NDEs, and they fascinate me, absolutely fascinate me. And one of the newsletters contained a brief on a video called the Nosso La. I don't know if you've ever seen it, and it is almost identical to what you've described. It's based on the work of the medium Chico Xavier. And it showcases what happens, reincarnation, pre-life planning, etc., etc. But the fascinating thing, Kathy, is that they follow the life or the death of a particular guy, and when he arrives in wherever it is that he arrives, which is where you arrived, the same thing. It was like this horrible. Everything was grey. It was abysmal. It was dismal. It was ick. And this was a good guy.
Yeah.
And he didn't know, he's like, where am I? Oh my gosh, this is hell. Why am I in hell? I'm a good man. And along
Yeah.
came somebody, I don't know, a spirit, a guide, another gentleman, and walked him through this. And as he was walking through, he was experiencing some sufferings that he had experienced in earth life. So what you were saying was, I'm wondering if that's kind of like a part of the review, part of this is what I experienced in the earth life, part of what the consciousness is showing us, because we know so very little. We know so very little about, how it all works. And I'm fascinated by the consciousness, by our consciousness. I haven't had a near-death experience, but I've certainly had experiences where I've seen colours that I can't describe. I've seen wars fighting up there in the stars. I've seen things that I cannot verbalise. I can't find the words to explain what I've seen. I've seen architecture, buildings that are subaquatic and floating on things, and I don't do drugs or anything like that. I can assure you. And you sort of think, oh my God, who do I talk to about this? Where do I
Yeah.
go with this thing? And are you familiar with Dolores Cannon?
That doesn't ring a bell. I might
She,
tell me what she's
she's passed away
famous
now. She's
for.
passed into spirit now, but she learned to be a hypnotist, American lady, and her husband was in the armed forces. He had an accident. He couldn't work anymore. She didn't have any work skills. She'd always been a wife and a mother. So she had no skills in the workforce. So she figured the best thing she could do and easiest way to go was to learn hypnosis. So that's what she did. But through her therapies, she stumbled across the spaces between lives.
Ooh.
Yeah. And she's written a book, which I have there, called Between Death and Life.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah. And so people hadn't passed away, but under this deep kind of hypnosis that she'd done, she was able to bring people between between their lives. And what they spoke of was so similar to the beauty that they saw. Some saw not so great. And so, it's a fascinating field. It's like, we talk about, or we describe it as near death experience, but it's almost like a near life experience, isn't it? It's like it's returning to who you truly are. Did you feel that? And when you were in the spirit world, were you? Were
Yeah.
you aware? You had your body, your five senses, or were you communicating telepathically?
You don't know. Yeah, it was telepathic, but you don't feel any different. It's just you. I didn't look down and see my body or anything, but I was looking at my friend, and he, instead of looking 53, he looked about 35. His hair wasn't gray, it was brown. He was wearing a sweater I had given him for Christmas. I mean, it was him. And it was weird because he was alive, and so was I. And like I say, you don't want to leave. That's home. That's home. That's where we belong. I believe I didn't get the life review. I don't think I was there long enough. But I've heard not one person, and all the people I've met, not one person said they were judged. That's what we were taught as Catholics. You're going to be judged. But nothing. Just the life review, and you get to, I'm told, feel what it was like to interact with you. So if you had if you were kind and loving to somebody, oh, you felt the warm fuzzies. And if you had a bad day and you kicked the dog, yike, you get to feel that pain and that disappointment. And it's kind of like a karma. You put it out, you get it back, but it's not a judgment. And that was a big relief to me.
If there is a judgment, it's like yourself. You're judging yourself on what you've done to others. And actually, that's what Jesus said, do unto others,
Right.
because what you do unto others you do unto yourself. Not that,
Right.
not you should, but you need to. You need to be aware that what you're doing,
Has
you're going to
consequences.
pay retribution for. And
Right.
there's a
Kind of
lot.
a learning experience. I feel like it's your report card. You know,
Yeah,
it's, I think we plan our lives. That's what they tell us. And we want these certain experiences and we go down with our soulmates and we have like Earth is this huge amusement park with all these contrasts and it's scary sometimes and it's fun and it's exciting. And we chose to come here. And so many people say that Earth is just for the brave souls. You know,
yeah.
it's tough down here, but it's fun too. And so I just feel like, wow, I chose to come down here. I said I would be a mother to these two nice human beings who've gone through some pretty shitty stuff. And
Yeah.
I said, oh, I don't want to be involved with that. And they said, oh, please, we need you to be our mother. All right. So that takes so much stress off of everyday living. When stuff happens, instead of freaking out, I just think, wow, I planned this. I wonder what the lesson is. Maybe I better pay attention, you know?
Do you feel that everything's, how much of it is free will and how much of it is pre-planned? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we always have free will. I mean, just like oh, yeah, you get married for better, for worse, richer and poorer, sickness and health. Something goes sideways, and you say, "Hey, I have got to get out of here. I can't do this." I think the same thing happens down on Earth. You know, we say, "Oh yeah, I got these grand plans." Ooh, it's a little harder than I thought. So yeah, it's not meant to be easy, but I think we always have free will and it doesn't screw anything up. That's just part of the game.
What would be the biggest thing that has changed you? What would you say has been a defining, probably lots of them, but the most defining point in this experience for you? How has it changed the way you look at life?
Well, when I got back and I thought, all I could think about is, holy crap, I had a really, I really try to be a good person. What can I possibly do so I don't go back there again? I mean, it was like I was afraid to live, but I was afraid to die. It was awful. And so at one point I was praying, I said, look, God, the thou shalt nots did not work for me. Okay. I
Yeah,
need
yeah.
something positive to wrap the rest of my life around that's going to work. So I got, you get the voice comes in and says, okay. And it came in like 4 different segments: loving and kind, merciful and forgiving, encouraging, grateful, non judgmental, and useful. That's it. You can't remember all that, Cal. Loving and kind. So that's the way I turned everything and focused on that. And it took a while because you're still, you're used to your ways. But over the years, I found that has just, especially the useful thing. If you can find your purpose, the reason you're here, the reason this happened to you,
Ah,
then it makes it all worthwhile. Like helping people with a sharing group. That's a big useful for me. And doing all these podcasts and stuff, that's a big useful. I've been able when I got back, I thought I've got too much left to do. How in the hell am I going to do it?
yeah, yeah.
And bingo, we've got podcasts, people. That, it was all timing. And so that's how I've been able to do this. And I'm
What
so
were
grateful.
what were you doing before this happened?
Uh,
Who were you before this happened?
Wow. My dad had been in the Navy. We moved around a lot. I ended up in a lovely little town in California and high school, and then got married. I had a couple of kids that went sideways. I got into real estate by accident. And over a period of years, I started my own property management company, hired my daughter, my sister, my parents' friends all became my clients. I got to help all these people that were, oh my God, I don't know how we will find terrible tenants or people saying nobody will rent to me. And then they had the earthquake and the whole downtown went down. So they put all those people into tents, 7 big pavilions. I managed the whole thing for 2 years. It was right across the street from my office. So I have been able, and then I find clients, you know, so it's about being useful. You'll find your niche, what you're good for, yeah, and go with it. But it's you're not materialistic anymore. You don't care about. acquiring money and prestige and power and all that stuff. It's not important. It's important to be loving and kind.
It sounds to me like you were already in service before this happened. It's funny when hindsight's a wonderful thing. That's why I asked you, who were you? What were you doing before this happened? Because I'm more, I guess, fatalistic, not pessimistic, but fatalistic than the average person. I do tend to think, oh, this is meant to be, or there's a pathway here. And of course, you don't see it. I don't know if you feel the same way, but when you said about, oh, if you can find your purpose, it's like, how many of us go, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to be living in this town? Am I supposed to be married to this guy? Am I supposed to?
Right.
The thing is that yes, if we signed up and said, okay, I'll put my hand up, and there's this long queue of people and millions of souls want to reincarnate into the earth, why, once you get here, you think, what the hell was I thinking?
Exactly. More than once.
Yeah, more than once. It's like, get it right. But most of us don't know our purpose. We really don't. Maybe as children we do. They say, if you want to know what your purpose is, look back to when you were a child and someone said, and what do you want to do when you grow up? And I thought, well, if I thought back to that, it was always two things. It was either a vet or a marine biologist, right?
Oh, good. There you go.
I can't even stand on a jetty. I get so seasick. So the marine biology was a big And the vet, I can't. I'm an empath. I'm an empath with animals, and I can't handle an animal in pain. So the vet was a big crisscross. So it's like, well, geez, that's the end of that. What do I do now? But, it's like, it pans out, doesn't it? It pans out what your purpose is. If you don't worry about finding it, because it'll find you if you,
Exactly.
as you say, loving kindness, open your heart and stop thinking about me, and start thinking about, how can I be of service to others? How can I, which is how my little podcast came about. I just got a little message, from my higher consciousness or my guides or whoever you like to call them. And I'm sitting here going, meh, life's a bit meh. I got everything that I need, and boom, do a podcast. Say, what? I don't know how to do a podcast. I don't know how to do that. And, and who am I going to get? I'm nobody. I'm not anybody. I'm not Oprah Winfrey. Who's going to come on my show? But I followed it. I followed the guidance, and I've had, the most, like yourself, the most extraordinary people who are kind enough and generous enough to lend your voice and your experience in service to others, to help others. Because that experience that you had of going to that dark hell, you call it hell, can you imagine people that have experienced that feel terrified? Maybe they don't want to talk about it because maybe they think somehow if I talk about it, I'll manifest it. I'll bring it back in my dreams. I'll recreate it. I don't want, where thought goes, action follows, So maybe they don't want to talk about that, but you didn't stay for very long. I wonder were there souls there that, I don't know, is it some kind of purgatory? Were they there forever? You were just passing through?
That's what I thought it was. I thought it was purgatory because, like Catholics, I mean, you're pretty much told you're going to go to purgatory and get your sins burned off, even though Jesus died for your sins, and just get over it. Remember when we would pray for the poor souls in purgatory? I mean, or you get hurt on the playground, give it up for the poor souls. I mean, they were real to us. So that's what I figured where I must have been. But no, I think part of the message is to let people know that's not what it is. Nobody goes to hell. There isn't a hell, probably. I mean, there's, positive and negative energy, and you've got your free will. So if you don't want to go to heaven, you want to go to help yourself. But God, quote unquote, won't send anybody there. Nah, that's your choice.
I think we create our own. We create our own hell by the decisions that we make because we have free will, and everybody always blames God for everything. Oh, this happened this happened. Why did God let that happen? It's like
Yeah, it makes me crazy.
things happen. Things happen.
And a lot of times they're planned, folks, by
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I, for one, I think you're probably another that doesn't wanna come back here again. I
No.
I wanna go someplace a little lighter, a
Yeah.
little less hassle, but I think, it's eternity is a long time, so maybe we'll get bored again sometime and say, "Oh, all right, one more shot." But,
Yeah, just for laughs, let's go back
yes, just for
there.
a lot of short time. Yes, but yeah, if you look at it that way, everything changes.
Yeah.
You lighten up, folks. This is something that you decided to do, and it's going to be okay. It's terrible and it's awful, and I don't even like to read the papers. It's awful what people do to each other, and the planet's got weird weather, and but I love it. I love it when they show us space, and there's 100 billion other galaxies and 100 billion other planets, and it makes everything so small here. So
Yes.
small. And then
Yeah.
we're just a little piece of dust. But we've got this consciousness, and so we're huge. We're part of all this. Get out of yourself and just think of the wonder of all this. We can't even fathom how wonderful all this is. And you come down here, I think you get the mind wipe, somebody said. You just say, "Oh, sure you're gonna go? Okay, here we go." Like pushing you off in the roller coaster. Woo.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and there's the people that like I had a daughter that was born, she only lived 2 days and had birth defects, and that was awful for me. I thought maybe I'd never see her again because if I was so mad at God, "Why'd you do this to me? Why'd you do that little child?" And I thought, you know, if I'm too not, snarky to God, he won't let me see her again. So I'm blackmailed. I have to go and, you know, praise this wonderful being who just killed my baby. All that stuff we have to work with, and everybody else does too. And I found that was probably the first purpose I really felt. I didn't know it,
Mm.
but two of my other girlfriends had babies that died, and they were distraught. And people would say, "I'm so sorry. I know how you feel." Well,
No,
no,
you don't.
unless you really don't.
Mm.
But they would come to me and say, "You know how I feel. I see that you're getting your life back together. I see you can laugh again. You know, will I ever get over this?" No, but you'll learn to live with it.
Mm.
And I'm here to be your friend. And so that was the first time I thought, well, wow, something good came out of that.
Mm. I also remember learning along my pathway of the souls, learning about souls, is that sometimes when there are little ones that don't stay for very long. I experienced that myself, but it was in utero, and it was. I even named her. I got her name. I received everything about her, but she didn't stay too long, and her
Mhm.
heart gave out. Her heart failed,
Mhm.
and I thought, well, that was pointless. I don't mean that in a non-sensitive way, but I just thought, well,
No.
what was that
Yeah.
about? And then I learned. I thought, well, I've got to find out. I got to learn. I got to know what happened here. Took me on a really long path and a big deep rabbit hole. But suffice to say, what I learned was that sometimes souls will come, and then they go, no, this is not the experience. They can break that contract. So if they find that they are coming into a body that may not be able to provide the life that they're wanting, or so on and so forth, that they can actually choose. We can at any time choose to break our soul contracts. I don't know what that means in the long term, but my understanding was the soul can say, actually, I don't really want to do this, and go home. And I can't prove that's right or wrong, but it certainly did give me peace. It certainly gave me that feeling of, okay, well, this wasn't her time. I thought it
Mhm.
was,
Mhm.
but it
Mhm.
wasn't. And it gave me peace that I'm glad that she didn't come and live a life of suffering. I'm glad that if
Right.
this wasn't going to be for her, maybe I'll get the next bus, but not
Right.
this one, you know?
Yeah, I think so too. Or my way of looking at it was for me to have this lesson, and she volunteered, but she says, like you say, I've been to Earth. I really don't want to stay very long. And I says, okay, but yeah, if you'll just go down for a couple of days and be with me, and I can have the experience, okay, that's cool. But I'm out of here. 2 days, I'm out of here, and that did give me peace. I thought, "Okay, that was her choice. That's cool." And I learned, and I got some empathy out of that helped other people.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? Empathy is wonderful as long as you can kind of handle it. Any kind of pain that others are suffering, I feel, and it's overwhelming for
That's
me.
that's right.
Overwhelming. So
Mhm.
I don't go outside very much because I just can't. Other people,
Yeah,
or even animals, especially animals, actually, I
yeah.
feel everything.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it's it's
Overwhelming, and yeah, at the least, yeah.
but you know what? This is talking about your experiences, but I'll just say
Uh-huh.
something very, very quickly because I think we're talking about breadcrumbs and things that happened to us. In July 2019, I woke up at some silly hour of the night with my husband asleep beside me and my two dogs on the bed, and there was this gentleman standing at the end of my bed.
Ooh,
And my first thought was, "Oh, great, we have a burglar," right?
yeah.
Uh, but the funny thing was that, Kathy, as I sat bolt upright, right? And I'm looking at this guy, and this sort of all happened in a millipoofteenth of a second. It's very, very quick, right? And I realized two things. One, I turned and I saw myself still asleep on the bed. And
Ooh,
secondly, the man in front of me was dressed in a very plain beige tunic with his hands across his groin, with
uh-huh.
a hood, round face, caramel chocolate skin, the most beautiful chocolate, watery chocolate eyes I've ever seen in my life. And he looked up at me and I just went, "Who are you?" And
Yeah.
poof, he was gone. And I
Oh,
thought,
ooh.
yeah. And I thought, okay. And then bang, I hit my body again, bang, and it jumped me off the bed. So that kind of, took me on. That was the beginning of that. What's going on out there? Who was that? Why did you come here? What's it was like, I'm here to let you know there's more to this, and
Ah,
there's a lot going on in the world. I don't know. He didn't actually say a word to me. I think I
and
freaked him out or frightened him off. But yeah. So and of course you can't not be you can't go back when
no,
you've had an experience like I've had, or experience like you, more to the point, where
yeah.
you've left the earth plane, you've gone to the spirit world, you've seen things there. Did you see any pets? Did you see any
No,
animals?
but other people do. Pets, I've heard that over and over again. All your pets are there.
Yep.
One lady said that when she got over there, she was walking on this beautiful beach, and there was pine palm trees up ahead of her, and she saw some cloud of moving bodies coming toward her. She had been a breeder, a dog breeder, and she started to turn and run, and it was every single dog she'd ever had, and they're all around her, jumping up and down, and then she turned around and walked down the beach, and they're all she says, "Oh, I hated to leave." She says, "I just hated to leave." But she said, "I know they're waiting for me." Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel differently about your family when you came back? Because you were saying that you really didn't, you were a bit pissed at having to come back here. How did you feel? Did your relationship
Oh.
with them change?
Yeah, because they didn't understand. I was apart. I was apart from things. I was so changed that I didn't fit in anymore. I was a bother. Don't quit talking about that. You'll get over it. I was alone with all these people, and it was just it was awful. It was awful, and like I say, I really struggled for a very, very long time. And one of the things that I did do, and a lot of people do when they get back, is I went and joined hospice. And I loved being with people that were just going home. I would just, I was so jealous. I remember saying that to one poor little man. He was kind of freaked out, and we had an interchange. We couldn't talk, and I said, "Oh," I said, "I would change places with you in a minute." And his eyes got all big, like, "Are
Yeah.
you out of mind?" And I said, "Oh." It is so I said, "Lit" I just sat down. I said, "Oh, it's so wonderful and this and that, and it's love, and it is kind." And all of a sudden, he put up his hands and it crossed them across his chest, and he was getting ready. He was he was
Oh my
excited
gosh.
that he was gonna go. And another time, I was in a room with a lady who was passing, and the daughter was there with her husband, and she was just distraught. She was probably in her 20s, and she's wailing, "I'll never see my mom again," you know? And I said, "Well, yeah, you will." And she says, "What? Who are you? What do you mean?" And I
Yeah,
says, "I had just got back. Haven't unpacked yet, but it's wonderful. It's fantastic. You will see her. She's gonna be with you all day." I just went on, and she turned to her husband and says, "I want to see my mom again." And she was jumping up and down, and I thought, "Oh," that was another thing. I thought, "Oh, purpose. Oh, I'm hopeful here." So I was there a couple of years, and then but I've heard so many people say that
that's
they
so
just wanna
beautiful.
be near those lucky people that are going home.
You've experienced what it's like to be there, so you've walked the talk, and I think that's very helpful to people that are looking very close at crossing over. To hear that if it was Joe Schmo,
Yeah,
saying, "Oh, it'll be all right," but someone
yeah,
that's been there, come back and has the T-shirt to prove it, it's a very special gift. What a special gift
yeah,
to have. And,
I love
your book, your memoir, Misfit in Hell to Heaven it's hard to sort of phrase, isn't it?
the voice gave me that, and I says, "No, that's gonna be a mess," and they said, "No, no, no, no."
You just have
So
to
the
wrap your head around it. Misfit in Hell to Heaven expat. That's
well,
it.
while I was having the helix experiences, they would put me in this position where I would have to do something wrong and obnoxious and terrible, and I'd say, "No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not." And they'd say, "All right, it's just gonna get worse," and I'd get in a worse situation. So, that was the misfit in hell thing because I remembered the Catholic thing, the greatest sin is giving up or whatever that's called, but,
Mhm.
despair. If you despair, you're lost, and I thought, "Oh, I can't give up, I can't give up." So, that was the misfit in hell, but we're all heaven expats. We start in heaven, we come down here and do our work, and then we go home.
Yeah.
So we're all heaven expats.
We're all a facet, a shard of the
Right.
divine, whether you call it God, I know when I was in Catholic school, God to me was sort of the brother of Santa Claus, really. He was big with a white beard and grey and sat there looking very friendly and had lots of presents if you were good, you know? Otherwise, you're over there with that guy in the little red suit and his fork is trident, and that was kind of it. Your memoir, people want to read your memoir. Where can they find that? Where can they
Probably best place is on Amazon or Barnes& and Noble. I've got a website, but it's hard to find. It yes, is a www.misfitinhell.com. I mean, it's not brain surgery, but it's just a lot easier on Amazon because there's the Kindle and the hardcover. I've got Audible, CD. I tried to, and then I just have it's translated into Spanish because there's so many of our Catholic brethren that might be able to use that same message that you and I just kicked around.
How do you see religion now?
I there's a SNR that you can put when you go in the hospital, any place. What's your religion? SNR, spiritual, not religious. So no, I don't do religion.
Mm,
Angry with religion, actually.
mhm.
I if somebody, I mean, my family still goes to church, and I'll go, but I feel like I'm doing a wink, wink with
Yeah,
God, saying, "Well, this makes them
we
happy.
know. We
We
know.
know. Yeah, you
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
know what's going on, and I don't want to hurt their feelings." That's again about being loving and kind. I'd rather not be here, but I'll be loving and kind and support them.
Yeah, must be very hard for you to be sitting there sometimes listening to, scripture being read out with
Ugh.
absolutely no understanding of the basis of it, and
I
and
know,
no
it's
no
so
one.
sad.
Anyway, that's a different
Yeah,
story
that's another
altogether.
thing, but yeah, if it brings comfort, I just warn people if your religion is saying if you don't do this like we say, you're going to hell, run. Nobody can send you to hell, okay? Nobody.
You put yourself there. How do you view your relationship with God, the divine, whatever you want to call him, her, they?
Uh family. I know I'm gonna go back home and
Do you
I'm
feel that
at least
love?
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, re
Don't
even
take
like
off.
my
It
mother
sounds
says,
like.
"That's just terrible. Do you wanna leave?" I said, "No, you don't understand. It's
Oh,
just
yeah,
so wonderful over there, and this is the pits half the time."
I
But
get
I'm a good sport. I'll play it out. I signed up for it, so
yeah.
I'll hang out till
I
it's
get it. I often say, when I look around, I say to my friends, "Oh, look, God, I just wanna go home." And they say, "Well, where are you now?" And I said, "Oh, well, I'm here on earth, but I wanna go home." "Oh, don't do anything to." I said, "No, I'm just looking forward to going home," and sitting down with
like
my
you're at
songbook.
camp,
Yeah,
some horrible Girl Scout camp. You got mosquito bites and you got
yeah,
poison oak. You lost your underwear and then you just want to go
yeah.
home.
Yeah, has the fun started yet? But
Yeah.
yeah, look, honestly, it's beautiful when you're aware that this really is a little splinter of experience in the journey of your soul. I think it can make it a little easier, and you can look at things through maybe not humorous glasses, but maybe a little bit lighter, even the times that we're living through at the moment. You got
Yeah.
sent back for this one, and I bet you're dirty on that. But, we look around and we go, "What are you doing, people? We're on this ball. We're all stuck here. You can't take anything with you. You came with nothing. You go with nothing. Anything you've got here, you got to leave it here." So what are you fighting over?
You
What?
don't
Why?
want it.
What's going
Yeah,
on?
and
Ah,
I know. And that's the blessing and the curse, I think, of coming back is
yeah,
understanding all of that, and all these others just don't. Yeah, okay. They signed up for what they signed up, and it's
yeah,
not for me to talk them out of doing what they agreed to do. I'm just not gonna make it worse.
yeah,
I'll just be loving and kind to them and
yeah,
forgiving and merciful and all those things you don't really wanna do,
yeah.
but that's my job.
And hope, and giving hope to people who feel like there
Ah,
might not be anything else but this.
yes, I feel really, really badly for people who think that this is the end, and I love to say you are in for the best surprise. Oh my god,
Beautiful.
I just love it. I would love to be there when you open your eyes and go, "Holy crap, are you kidding me? She was right." Instead of nothing.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's just it's like a surprise party.
yeah, yeah,
There's gonna that when they open that door, that everybody's gonna jump out and go, "Surprise!"
yeah. I
That's
sense your
just
excitement. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful because you want everyone to know, and it's so challenging when you want to shout it from the rooftops, but there will always be those that don't want to listen. There will be those that are kind of ready to listen, one toe in the water, and there will be those that say, "Bring it on, just bring it on."
yeah.
But, you know, I always ask, it's an extraordinary conversation today, and one that we could talk on for hours and hours and hours. But, you know, I always ask, before I ask the question, I'll ask this from you. For those that it might be listening now and who might be grieving, or, they're afraid of death or going through difficult life experiences, what wisdom or comfort would you most want to share with them from your perspective, your experience?
My experience is that, my dad passed away of COVID, and wasn't there when he died. And he and I always said, whoever goes first, come back and give a sign. And so I was probably a week or so after he passed away that my publisher and I were talking, and she was a medium, and we were talking, rah, rah, money things, rah, 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 and she said, "Oh, your dad's here." And I said, "What? Your dad's here." And I says, "You're kidding." He says, "No, no, he's showing me an apple. What's that mean?" I said, "Oh my gosh." The last thing that he could eat was my sister would cut him up little slices of Fuji apple and he would just suck on that. That was the last thing and he just loved him. She says, "Oh yeah, he's smiling." And, and then "Do you have an aunt who died?" And I says, "Yeah. How about your grandma, his mom? Is she still here?" And I said, "Oh no, they've deceased." And he says, "Well, he wants you to know they came and got him, because we were discussing, somebody always comes to get you, and he just wants you to know that the my grandmother that I was named after, she was also Mary McDaniel, and the sister got him, and she says he's got the biggest smile on his face." So my dad's still here. That's been 5 years. He goes when I start forgetting something, he'll start flashing the lights. That's big.
Yeah.
A lot of times they'll flash the lights. Even when I'm down at the senior center, he started flashing lights, and it was so often that people say, "Oh, it's just Kathy's dad. We'll just, don't worry about it. Don't bother changing the light bulbs because they'll still flash."
Yeah.
If I lose anything, I'll just say, "Okay, Dad, I can't find my keys. I've looked everywhere," and I'll just be quiet for a second, and I'll see my robe with them in the pocket, and I'll go and I'll get my keys out of the pocket. So
Yeah.
he's always with me. I got a picture of him right there. And that's what I would tell people. They don't go away. They're still there.
Yeah.
Talk to them. They're always around you, and when you go, you don't worry about, you're gonna be with them too until they come home. And when you open your eyes on the other side, it is a surprise, and everybody's there. I know it. I've seen it.
That's beautiful. It's interesting that the one person that was there to meet you was your friend that had passed. I
Yes.
mean, of all your
Well,
family and
yeah.
everything.
I've
Yeah, it
been
was him.
caring for him for 9 months. We had been
Yeah.
engaged for, like, 5 years,
Oh
and we had to
gosh.
split up because he got transferred away. Anyway, so he called and asked me if I'd please come help him. I said, "You bet."
Yeah.
So, when he died, it was awful, it was really awful, but there he was, and I was so happy to see him, and yeah, and we were always playing tricks on each other, so for him to say, "Sorry, you gotta go back." It's like, "No,
Oh.
that's the meanest trick either one of us ever did. I'm gonna get you for this. I'll find a way." But it was all good-natured, but I thought of all people, he probably volunteered, "I wanna do it, I wanna do it."
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
it's
have you sensed him around you since you've been back?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
he's always with me too.
Probably comes
You're
up
not
in meetings.
alone. You got a tribe of people that are there to help you out, and,
Yeah.
you're not alone, and
That's
they're waiting
beautiful.
for you. Did you ever see Ghost
I
with
did
Patrick Swayze? That
many
scene where
times.
he's in the hospital and the guy passes away and his arm falls to the side, and that golden retriever, which is my granddog that is on the other side waiting for me, takes him next door and they have a surprise party and everybody that, are all happy to see him. I keep that right in my forefront of my brain all the
Right.
time.
Right.
Yeah, it's
That's
true.
that's so beautiful. I had a girlfriend of mine that passed from stage 4 cancer, and I spent some time with her just weeks before she passed, and she looked at me and she said, "Will you promise me you'll see me again?"
Ah,
And I looked at her and I knew that I would not see her again because of distance.
yeah.
I just knew, but I looked at her and I said, "Yeah, I'll definitely see you again. We will catch up soon." And I meant every word of it, but inside, I knew that I would not see her here again. And she looked at me and there was like no words said, Kathy. There were no words after that. She and I looked at each other and it's like our souls went, okay, okay, I'll see you then.
Yeah.
And I walked out and I thought, well, that was weird. But that was
Yeah, how am
weird.
I gonna pull that off, huh?
How am I going to pull that off? But it was kind of like someone else telling me to tell her that.
Yeah.
And she knew that someone else, it was like there were others with us at the time saying, you tell her this and you tell her that, you know. It was very strange. And I've got a photo of her right there next to me here and talk to her all the time. And yeah, well, I'll catch up with you. Don't you worry about that, you know.
Yeah.
It's a very strange knowing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kathy, before I let you go, I always ask my beautiful guests one question, and it is a little bit separate from the last question I asked you because this is kind of for everybody. If you had one message for the world right now, what would your message be?
Would you people just please be loving and kind?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Kathy McDaniel, thank you so much for your time today, your experience, your love, your generosity. And before you go, I'm going to repeat this to the best of my capabilities. Your website, all the W's, misfitinheaventoheavenexpat.com. And you can also find Kathy on Facebook at Kathy McDaniel.foxis. Foxis. Island's a tricky word, isn't it? Because you want to say L. Thank you
just
so
put
much.
it up there, just put with Kathy McDaniel, and it'll probably show up in the search bar or something.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. I'll be definitely following up on this beautiful memoir of yours. Thank you for your time, Kathy, so much.
Oh, thanks, Lisa.
Bye for now. Thank you for being here and for listening to Enlightened Connections. I hope today's conversation offered you insight, reflection, or a deeper sense of connection. If this episode resonated, please follow or subscribe and share it with someone who may benefit. You can also join me inside the Enlightened Connections Facebook community. I'd love to welcome you there. Until next time, take gentle care, stay connected, and trust the whispers.